Hi everyone, I'm Dina with Mills Family Gardening. Today is January 26th, and in this video we'll be growing rosemary from seed to harvest. In my experience, rosemary has a very low germination rate. For that reason, I'm going to use a lot of seeds per cell. And these are rosemary seeds. They're pretty small. So we'll be planting them at about 1/4 inch deep. I already have some moist soil in the seedling tray. I'm using organic potting mix by Miracle Grow, but you can use any potting soil that you have as long as it's the best quality potting soil. You want to have strong seedlings. So I'm going to make little indentations in the soil about 1/4 inch deep, not very deep. And then I'll take about 3 or 4 seeds and place them in each hole. Now I'm going to cover the seeds, and I'm going to make sure to keep the soil moist. And since it's cold outside, I'll keep the seedling tray in the house under our grow lights where it's much warmer. Today is February 1st and some rosemary seeds are coming up. We have only 2 seedlings just yet, but we'll wait longer until all of them come up. Today is February 16th and all our rosemary seedlings have come up. You can see that in these 2 little cells, actually only 1 plant in each cell came up and 1 plant here. And I remember that I planted up to 4 seeds in each cell. So you can see that rosemary can have a pretty low germination rate, even though these ones have 3 seedlings come up, 2, and 1. In other words, if you plant rosemary seeds, use more seeds. I've been keeping them inside under our grow lights, and that's what I'll be doing until it warms up outside and it's time to plant rosemary outside, either in containers or in the ground. Today is March 23rd. Our rosemary seedlings look so good. I took them outside a few weeks ago and I put them in that spot that gets dappled sun most of the day. It gets maybe a couple of hours of morning sun and then dappled sun the rest of the day. I never moved them anywhere else, and they stay there for a couple of weeks, and now they're ready to be brought out in full sun. And today we're going to transplant our rosemary seedlings into a larger container. I found this container, and also I'll plant 1 seedling in the ground. Now rosemary does not like sitting in wet soil, so make sure your container has really good drainage holes, and make sure you plant it in the ground where it doesn't get boggy or too wet, where the soil can dry out between the waterings. And also rosemary loves hot weather, so it's perfect for our Texas summers. I filled up this container with Miracle Grow organic container mix. It's already moist, so I don't need to make it moist, but if it was completely dry, I would make sure to saturate it with water. Otherwise, if I plant the seedling into completely dry soil, and when I water, then the soil will push the seedling up with water. So I'm going to use some fertilizer. This is just organic granular fertilizer, and I'll sprinkle some on top of the soil. Even though I know this soil is really good quality, it will feed the plant for about 2 or 3 months, I will add more fertilizer anyway. And I'll just make a hole in this container that is about the size of the seedling or the seedling tray that it's in. You can see the roots look really good. They are starting to go in circles, which is a sign of being root bound, but we'll fluff them up a little bit and simply put them in this hole like this. If it's a little bit deeper, that's okay. Rosemary plant will simply grow some roots on the side of its stem. And then I'm going to push the soil around the seedling and slightly press it. I think it's not enough soil here, so I'll have to add more soil. And then we can simply water the seedling. And after we water, I'll add more soil. And make sure that your container drains water real well. I'm going to keep the container in full sun, or dappled sun is okay too, because soil in containers dries out much faster than in ground soil. I'm going to make sure to let the soil dry out between the watering, so I'll just kind of touch it or stick my finger about 1/2 inch or 1 inch into the soil. Make sure that it's dry, and when it's dry, I'll water it again. Here in North Texas, rosemary is a perennial plant, so I'll just be keeping the container outside throughout the year. We'll plant another seedling, or maybe a couple of them, in the ground. And I picked this spot because this spot gets dry. I can tell that it doesn't get watered from our drip irrigation. Originally, I wanted to pick this spot, but I can see that it's moist and stays wet, so I want to avoid this spot. And also, rosemary plants or rosemary bushes can get pretty large when they're mature. So I'm going to plant it here where it would get plenty of space between our mealy blue sage on that side and Greg's mist flower on this side, because these two plants can get real big too. And I'm simply going to dig a hole, not necessarily very big. Ideally, I would want to amend the soil because we have heavy red clay soil. But I think rosemary plant is pretty tough and it's suitable for growing in our clay Texas soil. I'll take one seedling and I'll simply put in the ground like that. The hole is too deep and I forgot to put fertilizer, so I'll sprinkle some fertilizer and then add some soil and mix it together. And then I'll put the seedling on top of the soil and bring the native soil back, making sure to eliminate all the air pockets, because if there's air pockets, the roots might get dry and die. And that's how we planted a rosemary seedling in the ground. Now I just need to water it. About a couple of years ago, I tried to grow rosemary from seed. Also, I did not get a very good result, and I think that was because I used some older seeds. So if you're growing rosemary from seed, make sure to use fresh seeds. Seeds that were harvested the previous year or this year. Also, I might plant one rosemary seedling in front of our house because we don't have any drip irrigation there, and I'm trying to plant mostly drought and heat tolerant plants, so I think it will do well there. Today is April 6th and our rosemary in this container got attacked by some caterpillars. So I'm going to use spinosyn to spray it, and I'm spraying it on an overcast day. It needs to be cloudy or the sun needs to be gone, because if you spray it on a sunny day, then the sun will burn the leaves. So I'm simply going to spray it like this. It's supposed to take care of the caterpillars, and we'll come back and see if it works. The rosemary that we planted in the ground actually looks much better than this one. It's not attacked, it's not damaged, and I have no idea why it's doing much better, why the insects prefer this plant to the one in the ground. Today is July 6th. Our rosemary plant has grown a lot. It's much taller now. You can see underneath there are some black leaves like this one and this one. This is all a sign of either overwatering or fungal disease or pest damage, and lately we've had a lot of rain, so I'm sure that contributed to some black leaves. If your rosemary plant has been overwatered, then cut back on watering, let the soil dry out completely before you water it again. Rosemary likes to grow in dry soil, well-draining soil. But today we're going to harvest our rosemary, and I'm simply going down the stem a few inches and harvest as much as I need or can from this plant. This plant is relatively young, so I'll just cut a few inches of these prigs. I can see some dirt underneath the leaf, so I'll have to rinse it well. And after I rinse it, I can simply run down my hand like this, the other way, the opposite way that the leaves are growing. And this is the rosemary that I can use in cooking. Actually, right now it smells very good. It's very aromatic. Also, it's a really good way to prune rosemary. If you prune it this way, it will become bushier instead of just two tall branches sticking up. So if you would like to keep your rosemary a smaller size, simply prune it, keep the branches lower, and all the side shoots will start growing. You can see that this branch is growing some side leaves like this leaf and also this leaf. And in between the main branch and the side leaf, there is a tiny little side shoot that's growing. This one is a side shoot, and if it keeps growing, then it will turn into a new branch, and that's how rosemary keeps propagating itself. Eventually this container will become small for this rosemary, and I will have to plant it into a larger container or maybe into the ground. But in any case, I'll have to make sure that the soil stays dry between the waterings. The rosemary that we planted in the ground is growing well, considering that I have not watered it once since we planted it in the ground. I have not fertilized it, but it's growing in the jungle of self-seeded basil. The basil that's growing around it is surrounding it completely, so it's in almost complete shade, so it's not growing as fast, and also the soil is heavy clay there. And that's how we grow rosemary from seed. I'm very pleased with our results. I love the fragrance of this plant, and I think it will be a really nice addition to our garden. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've learned some lessons, because I have, and have a great day.